Hello and welcome to the Digital Digest, your weekly breakfast of insights, tips and tricks and general information that will help anyone try to move things forward in this digital world of accounting. This show is sponsored by Fathom, your all-in-one forecasting and reporting tool, and it's also brought to you by the Digital Disruptors and SB Digital, both of which are pushing the boundaries in this digital accounting space. I'm your host, Ryan Piercy, and I'm joined by the wonderful Jessica Miller, the UK account management lead at Fathom, as we are talking about Fathom and tips and tricks and the way to get the most out of this system, one that we use quite heavily at Scrum Bland and the SB Digital team. So we know it a lot. We thought actually others know this. They want to get the most out of it. So let's crack on. Let's deep dive into this. So Jess, it'd be really good to get a little, I guess, from your words, what Fathom is all about and what it can deliver for businesses and accountants.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm happy to be here. In terms of Fathom, so it's essentially an add-on to your accounting system. So that could be Xero, QuickBooks. We also integrate with Sage and MyOb, and as well as Excel. And essentially, it transforms your insights that you're getting from those systems. So we do that with reporting, forecasting, and some great analysis tools that are quite visual in nature. And we also have group reporting, so things like your consolidations and your benchmarking. And really, the purpose of it is to bridge that gap between the language the accountant might speak and then that language that your clients or your business owners might speak.
Yeah, and I think it does it really well. In fact, that it's very graphical. You know, when it came out in the market, God, it feels like 10 years ago now. I don't know if it has been in the UK market that long. Yeah, even longer. There you go. So it's graphical take on how to, I guess, deep dive information and focus on, the key performance indicators that the business owners really should be focusing on, rather than the detail that we as accountants tend to send to them all the time. It really focuses on actually what is it that makes us as a business tick, what makes us a success. And you talked about forecasting, you talked about consolidation, and I love probably the latest, the biggest release from Fathom in the last few years is that scenario planning, which I think took a while to get there, but has been a great add-on. So could you talk a little bit about the forecasting and scenario area of Fathom? Because I think that really is a strength now.
Yeah, absolutely. The scenario planning is a great piece of our forecast. In terms of the actual forecast and what it is, it's a three-way forecast that you can build in Fathom. It can be 3 to 5 years into the future, so it gives your client that real long-term look at their performance. And it's been set up to be, a real decision-making tool. So going beyond the actual forecast itself, you also have things like the micro forecasts, which allow you to kind of build specific events or actions. And then that scenario planning, which I think is really one of the most powerful things about the forecast. I guess in an ideal world, our forecast would be accurate 100% of the time, but sadly, we don't live in that ideal world. So it's good just to build, different versions of that forecast that you can then present to a client, so they have a really clear range of their expectations for the next, foreseeable future. It's a great way just to kind of build some confidence over the actions that they're planning to take, and so they feel like they're kind of prepared for every kind of scenario. You can also report on it, so the forecast is integrated with your reporting in Fathom, so you can get some great visuals, and you can actually see the scenarios side by side in a very visual way or in a numeric way, depending on how the client takes on information.
Definitely. I love the fact that you can do like budgeting, you can do forecasting, you can do scenario planning, and then report against those, for different, KPIs, different drivers, different graphs, so that you can actually pull different information in. And as you say, best, worst case scenario planning for a pandemic, those kind of things is really helpful to have a tool such as Fathom in place. And I think something we should kind of touch on then is the financial systems that you integrate into, because that will determine where Fathom may fit for businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a number of integrations. So with the source accounting systems we integrate with, it's Xero, it's QuickBooks, MYOB, and Sage. So that's our newest integration, I think, as of a few months ago.
And is that Sage Business Cloud or is that Sage 50?
Oh, great question. Yeah, it's Sage Business Cloud at the moment, although as a bit of a sneak peek for everyone, we are looking to integrate with Sage 50 as well. So that will be our next integration release.
Oh, cool. Brilliant. And we've, the main focus of this episode is to deep dive into those tips and tricks, those things people may not know about Fathom that does set it apart, that maybe makes it differ from others in the marketplace. We've talked about the scenario planning and the ability to report against it, but it'd be really interesting for your take on what you can do with a micro forecast, how you can layer those into the scenarios, and how then we can kind of, I don't know, visually represent those. So can you dive a little bit more into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And not to get too into the weeds, because I think it's also a fun one to play around with, just for anyone who's interested. But again, just what a micro forecast is, it essentially allows you to build like a self-contained set of profit and loss and balance sheet movements. So you can actually build out an action for your client and look at it in isolation. So examples of that, you might want to build out a forecast for what it looks like if you hire a staff, and then play around with the timing of it. That's really what a micro forecast allows you to do. You can then put them into like what we call a business roadmap, which is like a visual timeline of those scenarios. And you can actually, again, play with the timing and see how that impacts your most important metrics, like your cash in hand. You can also incorporate them into scenarios, as you've touched on. So you could do a scenario that says, what if I hire, X number of staff? And you could tick on your micro forecasts for however many staff you want. And then you can actually present that again to the client and see how that impacts their bottom line. So it really, again, kind of speaks, I think, to the decision-making aspect of the tool. It's really not just made to be your typical forecast that you kind of pump out of Excel. It's really made, again, to enhance the client's understanding of what's happening in their business, and also what actions might benefit them and what might detriment them. So it's, like I said, it's quite a fun one to play with.
Yeah, and the roadmap, I think, is great, because there's so many times where you'll build a forecast and it'll be planned on, we're going to do this at this date. Something happens and you have to shift that. Or you may plan it and you're like, oh, well, now we have no money. So forecast scenario is not going to work. The ability to just slide something on a chart, which, it's hard to visualize here, but you're basically just moving something along, is a great way of redoing an entire forecast with just a click of a button. And I do love the fact you can turn off forecast. We've seen micro forecast. We've seen it for a client before, where they've actually built a micro forecast for every single member of their staff, so they can just change like a pay increase, etc., over time, and move when those pay increases would happen. And it meant that they could, I guess, being very heavy, I guess, in employee costs, they can really micromanage what they were going to do. Bonuses as well aligned to that. So yeah, I think that scenario planning is a really, really powerful tool. And another thing I think that is interesting about what you can do in Fathom is that most of it's financial driven from your integration. So if we take like the Xero QuickBooks Online integration into Fathom, you're putting all the financial information in a summary basis, not granular basis. So that's critical. Bring it in a summary basis, but you can link Fathom into like Google, I believe, and also you can import into Excel. So you can do non-financial triggers. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, you're spot on. So you can bring non-financial information into Fathom. So if, maybe Xero or QuickBooks information isn't quite cutting it, and you have data from like really any other system, you can connect in with Google Sheets or with Excel. So you can pull in that non-financial information into either your KPIs, or you can actually pull data into drivers within the forecast as well.
Yeah, so a critical one I always found is employee number, because that can determine so much, especially if in a professional services business or anyone where, your one of your main outlays is cost. So you want to divide possibly your income by employee number. Bringing that number in, typing that in is critical. And you can, by having live links in place, you can get something that just exports directly out of your payroll system into a spreadsheet and then pull directly into Fathom. You can build that, and it's really how much you want to automate. So just so I understand, I know you've got the live links into Google. Is it still an upload from the Microsoft Office suite?
Into
Fathom. Is it an upload into Fathom for Microsoft Office?
That's it. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Because I know longer term, I think there was a plan to integrate, to pull in, similar to Google, have a live link in place. And I know that's, well, at least was in the roadmap. So hopefully will be coming in the future, especially for, the accounting practices. A lot of us are on the Microsoft Office suite nowadays, but it's really powerful, and it's something that people should be doing. Another area I want to touch on is departmental scenarios, because more and more businesses now are splicing information down inside a single entity into different departments, cost centers, etc. And when they're doing that, they want the ability to forecast or budget on those individual areas. And I know you've got departmental budgeting now by integrating into Xero. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can pull information in. You can do it in Excel, I think, as well, but you can pull that information in, and then it can kind of report against those departmental budgets. It doesn't consolidate as yet. So I know it does consolidate. It does consolidate up inside the departmental budget. My apologies, but you can't bring that into your forecasting on a departmental basis inside one entity. But as I've discussed many times with Fathom, you can create multiple entities, multiple Fathom licenses, integrate those into individual departments into the likes of Xero, and then forecast on that department. And because you've got the consolidation tool, put an entity above that, consolidate it all up, so you've still got your single entity reporting, but you're looking at the individual forecast departments. And I believe your pricing also allows it to be a lower value per license when you're doing that. Is that how you see many accountants and businesses approach this?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, exactly as you've touched on. Essentially, you can import a department either within your company itself, although that gives you kind of the ability to group report on it. If you want to forecast on it, you can import it as an individual entity, and that really gives you the full suite of Fathom tools against it. So it can be really powerful depending on how granular your client's needs are. And yeah, exactly how we see quite a few people doing it. It's a great way to consolidate or similar departments, I should say, and yeah, get really that group reporting for them.
Yeah, and because say you've got a business and they've got, 20 departments, most of the time you're not going to need to forecast across 20 departments. You might need to forecast on 2 critical ones, and then you've got, maybe 18 that are something you can just report against a budget. You've got that ability to select how you do that in Fathom. So you've got the flexibility, which I've always found quite powerful. The brilliant bit that you need to do as an advisor in this space is work out, well, where's the return on investment for that business? Do they go, micro forecast across every department, or forecast across every department? You've got 20 licenses here now or 21 licenses for Fathom, or are we just going to splice it down? Maybe pick the critical ones and work out what does the business want? How do they need to splice that information? So that's something you need to do before you start building. But another key area I think that is very important to focus on is that although you can do your reporting, you can do your forecasting, I believe the biggest differentiator is the KPI reporting inside Fathom, and as well as standard KPIs, which I think you have 20, 30 specific KPIs.
60 actually. There's 60. Quite a lot in there. There's
wow, 60. That's out of the box KPIs, which is crazy. You still have the ability to create custom ones.
That's right. Yeah. And I guess in the way you can do that. So again, there's the 60 default KPIs that are already in there. They're, typically things you'd already want to be tracking for kind of a business in general. But of course, I think the real value of Fathom is actually tailoring it for the client. So you have again, as we've touched on, the ability to import non-financial information. You also have the ability to create custom formulas within KPIs, and that can include both your financial and non-financial data together. So it can become that really powerful tool. You can build out, industry specific insights. You can build out, business specific insights, really whatever your client needs to see. And it's a good way just to, again, give them that further understanding that they may not be getting from their source accounting software on what's actually happening and where they need to focus their attention.
Yeah, and because I guess by standard, you group those 60 KPIs into, specific. I'm not going to guess how many groups because I got it so wrong on the number of KPIs. But you can also create custom groups and combine them together. So when you're reporting them in this, I love the kind of the wheel of KPI reporting that the Fathom does. You can say, okay, well, how are the individual KPIs doing, but how are the groups of them working? And the visualization of that's really important. And one bit that I absolutely love is the kind of ranking of KPIs. How important are they? Because we might put 20 KPIs that a business is working on, but actually only 5 of them are critical for how the business will perform. And if you're looking at 20 and you might be, 75% of those were green, that's really good. If the 25% are all the critical ones, actually we're doing awful at the moment. So that grouping is really effective and something that we always build out. We always focus on when we're working with a business. So that, I believe, has probably been in there since day one. I don't remember a time before it was there.
That's right. No, it's actually an original bit, to my knowledge. I haven't been with Fathom for quite that long, but my knowledge is that's one of the first pieces of the platform. And I like what you've said about, I guess, having 20 KPIs because you basically can select on and off which KPIs you want your client to track. You don't need to show them all 60 or however many. You can really, again, just choose the ones that are relevant for the client. And then, as you've said, rank them by importance. So you might have 4 KPIs that are critical to their business performance. And if one of them's off track, it's an immediate action point that client has and that you have to kind of bring up and discuss with them in your meetings. So Fathom does a little bit of that prep work for you. You actually know kind of already, okay, I have X, Y, Z to touch on in my management meetings. And this is like the main focus. So it can help you kind of on that front, but it can also, again, just help the client know where they need to spend their time and effort.
Definitely. And it's that red flag, right? You want to know when something's going well, when something's going badly, and putting that right at front center of your reporting is going to make them, focus. Oh God, what happened this month? We need to do something. And because you're looking at real time data as much as possible with Fathom, by plugging into the cloud-based finance systems that you run through already, that's what they can make actionable. They can have actionable insights straight away. Something I know you've flagged to me is that tiered reporting approach using kind of templates you can share across various entities. So can you talk a little bit about that, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is probably one of the most common strategies we see used with our UK accounting firms in terms of how they're structuring their services in Fathom. So Fathom essentially allows you to set up custom reports if you'd like. We also have default reports in there, but you can save your reports as what we call a template. So that allows it to be shareable across other entities. Of course, it's not taking the client's information. It's only taking the setup and the work you've actually done in Fathom, and then applying kind of the relevant information into it. But you can actually set up reports on what we call a tiered service offering. So you might have a basic report template, and then you might have maybe a bit more of a customizable, bit longer of one. And then if the client signs up to a certain service offering, you can offer them, maybe something that's a friendlier entry point, like a basic report. Or if, they need more information or they've seen the value of your services, you can kind of put them onto kind of that next step, that next level up. And because you have the templates ready to go, it's really a big time saver for you as well.
Yeah, so you can customize as much as you need for a client, but as you say, it's about efficiencies. How much can we deliver if we're doing this on bulk, on scale? If you can copy, you can replicate things across easily and, to scale that up, easily switch on a new template for a client without having to rebuild it. That's critical. And then when you are building reporting packs, another key element that I love playing with and definitely aren't doing as effectively as should be is that automated text. So can you talk a little bit about how that works inside Fathom as well?
Absolutely. So I guess one of the other pieces, obviously understanding is a big piece of Fathom, but time saving is probably the other piece. I've never heard an advisor say they have enough time in their calendar. And it sounds like such a small piece, but the ability to automate text in Fathom can actually be a big time saver and also just give you peace of mind. There's 2 ways we can do it. So you can actually pull in figures into your text that's directly from your source accounting system using what we call a placeholder. So let's say like the figure updates back in 0, it'll update in your report as well. So you have that peace of mind and you don't need to spend that time and energy like changing, a 3 to a 4. It's updated for you. The other piece is you can actually automate some of the commentary itself using like conditional or if-then statements. So based on the result, you'll get a certain set of text within your Fathom report, and you can dictate that set of text as well if you want to. So if it's a negative or a positive result, the client knows what to do and what action to take because it's already set up for you.
Yeah, I think we're doing some of this, but I probably need to deep dive into it a bit more. But there's 2 other reports I wanted to touch on. One is you do have benchmarking inside the system. Merely that's just within your own client base, unless that's built out. You're nodding, that's good. It's still the same as I remember it. So yeah, you've got benchmarking in place. So if you've got a large number of clients in scale, if you've got that, I guess, department or sector focus, you can do some really good benchmarking. Or inside a group, if you've got a large group entity, you can benchmark between the different entities. But the final one I'll touch on is goal seek, which is the ability to go, okay, we want to improve maybe our profitability. What do we need to change in our turnover level, maybe our price of what we're selling and volume, our margin, or even just flexing our overheads. And just by moving little sliders, you can see what do we need to tweak slightly, just marginal gains, right? Always talking about marginal gains to deliver on that final figure. And is that one of your favorite, I guess, tools inside Fathom?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. So if you've ever been on a call with me and I'm in product, I've probably shown it to you because I just think it's a really fun and powerful tool. It sits in our analysis section. So it's one of the more like visual, like automated dashboards that we have. And if this sounds interesting, I highly recommend taking a look just because it's definitely more impactful if you can see it. But essentially, it allows you to see the result of your kind of main metrics in Fathom, and it allows you to set a goal against it. So like if you need to improve your cash flow, for example, you can set a goal for your client, and then you can have basically a list of drivers underneath that you can have a play with. And I think what's quite powerful is if you were to sit down with a client and ask them, okay, how would you improve your cash flow? Typically, they're going to say, we're going to sell more, we're going to increase our prices. But that's not always possible. I think if the client could increase their price dramatically, like they probably would do that in most cases. But what Fathom allows you to do is see some of the other drivers that maybe might not be as apparent to the client. So things like your inventory or your payables. So like it gives you kind of that different look and allows you to play with the drivers and see, okay, what steps do we actually need to take and what actionable things can we do to address this? So it's quite a powerful one, and again, quite a great tool to kind of aid that client understanding in terms of what they need to do as well.
Definitely, it's impactful. And, something that actually we've not really dived into so far is that although I always look at Fathom as being that great reporting that you build something, you share with the client, you're owning the data, you do have that live area, that collaboration. So in your meeting, you pull up Fathom, you can talk through certain areas, focus on the information in real time. That kind of dashboard side. And I think that balance between the two and being able to really get out powerful and visually impactful reports in PDF is critical. But real time in a meeting is also incredibly powerful. And I feel that that's a great place to wrap up this week's show. So hopefully anyone that's been listening to this episode has provided you with valuable insights you can take forward. Please do check out the show notes for links to the Digital Disruptors, SB Digital, and of course Fathom. If you want to ensure you catch future episodes, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you look out for the release every Thursday morning. We look forward to speaking to you next week.